Hey, y'all, thanks again for listening to Drew Tessier's Mostly Queer Comedy Podcast. Remember to subscribe, rate, and review. You can follow me at Drew Tessier NYC. And if you want to see it live, you can watch this on YouTube. Thanks, y'all.
It's Drew Tessier's Mostly Queer Comedy Show. Let's talk, y'all.
Hey, y'all, welcome to another episode of Drew Tessier's Mostly Queer Comedy Podcast. I'm so excited about today's guest. This was, when I thought about doing this show, the first guest I thought of, dying to get on here, Jaye McBride.
Died, and then I was the second.
And then we were able to book Jaye, and it all worked out. We're still waiting to hear from Rosie, but Jaye and I first met during the very first queer comedy festival, New York Queer Comedy Festival. You were still running a show at QED.
Yes.
Which I think, to let you guys know, QED is a club in Queens. If you get on the subway, go all the way to the very, very last stop in Astoria. There you get to QED. That's how I first met you. And then you were the first trans female comic passed into a major comedy club in trans female comic.
Trans comic. In New York for sure. First trans comic, big deal. BFD.
But what I think is so cool about you is before you came to New York City, you're from upstate.
I'm from upstate New York, not Buffalo. Buffalo is not upstate; it's West State.
Now we all know. I asked her beforehand if she was from Buffalo. She's calling me out on something that's not even on the camera.
Look, all I'm saying is buy Annapolis. That's all I'm saying. It's our state now. You know, I know you're not from here, but and I know you don't study geography where you live.
No, we don't.
Whatever
books.
Georgia fucking tobacco field you grew up in.
I'm from Alabama. At least I got the state correctly.
All right, sorry.
All right. Well, we're coming in hot, y'all. Now, I'm from the South, as you've just ridiculed. But you have one of my favorite jokes, which is the farther north you get, the farther south you are. Or I'm sure I've just butchered it, but something to that effect. Because what's crazy is if you get outside of New York City, I mean a block outside of New York City, it's Confederate flags, all the way up.
No, literally, you could see Confederate flags in upstate New York. It's insane. Like we weren't in the Confederacy. I don't like that. Wasn't a hand-me-down from great Uncle Jeb. That was like that really. They bought that. They went out and made a choice to buy that. I'm like, what are you doing? And what did the Confederacy last? Like 3 years? Like about the same as the pandemic.
Yeah.
Like and people are still if 100 years from now people are waving COVID flags. I'll be like, all right, it's a thing.
It will be interesting to see years from now how long people are still waving Trump flags.
Right.
So you cut your teeth on an upstate. How many years did you do comedy before coming to New York?
I started in 2009, and I went to LA for 1 year in 2016. So about 7 years, and then 1 year in LA, which is like 8 normally, which feels like 8. No, and I hated LA. Then I moved to New York in 2017. So
and you had already come out when you were doing comedy upstate.
Yep.
And you do have an amazing ability, because even doing shows sometimes in the Times Square area, just doing gay jokes sometimes, when they're scooping them out of Times Square and it's sort of a middle America audience, sometimes they'll tighten up on you. But you have such a great knack for quickly making an audience feel comfortable with you and then completely on your side. And then sort of sneak in the jokes that you're really surprised that they're on your side.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think like when I first started comedy, I didn't even talk about being trans actually. Like the first couple years, it was like I really just wanted to write great jokes. Like that's all I cared about. And then eventually, I started. Plus, it was in 2009. It wasn't exactly like we weren't all over the place.
Right.
Being trans was not in the vernacular. And if someone saw, it was like, "Whoa, that's weird," and then like moving on. It's like, but now we're public enemy number one. In a lot of people's eyes. So
yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, it's like they call me a groomer, and like, it's only a half truth. I mean, I mean, groomer is such a harsh word. I just like to eventually get to know kids.
Jesus Christ.
No, but they really think like trans people are First of all, I don't want to be near your fucking kids, let alone cut off their genitals or have sex with them. I don't want to fucking be near them. I
Yes.
don't want you or your kids anywhere else. Like I don't like no.
Let's get them out of the restaurants, out of the subway.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Exactly. No more kids. The bloodline ends here. Stop breeding, everybody. No, but it's very weird. And I think one time I was at Broadway and the Broadway Comedy Club,
Yeah, sure, I'm familiar.
and I was like just doing quote unquote crowd work, which is and I was just, hey, who's been married the longest? I've been married 30 years. What's your secret? And she's like, Jesus Christ. And I was like, all right. All right, that's yeah,
So you bring in a
I guess so,
third.
I guess so.
That's
I don't think
sort
he's a
of
secret. But, and also,
What is your secret? Jesus Christ.
it's like, how shitty is your husband?
Relax,
that you need
lady.
Jesus
You don't
stay
have to
married?
swear at me. So, how was that upstate, though? I mean, was it rough? Was it scary? Was it fine?
Well, I mean, when I did actually tell trans jokes, that I think like pretty much all the comics knew. I think there were some crowds at the time probably didn't or didn't care, just because again we weren't all over the place.
Right.
So it's sort of like, it's just one of those things. But everyone was pretty supportive. And then I think I do it in a way where I'm so self-deprecating. It's not like a lecture, And I'm not going to say like, and here's why you're fucking evil, you fucking bigots. Like here's another reason why you're a transphobe asshole.
And there's plenty doing that
Right,
narrative anyway.
No,
so it's-
100%, 100%, and whatever. And like there are alt rooms where you can do that sort of thing. I personally, I don't like stories. I don't like political comedy. I just like funny one-liners.
You
I
do
like-
really good one-liners. I mean, you are sort of a really classic kind of setup, punchline comic, which
And
I love.
Almost like the old Catskill comics of the back in the day. The Catskill circuit.
Yeah,
you,
sure.
You're a comic
the
person.
Borscht Belt, yeah.
Yeah, the Borscht Belt. That's right. It was like the old like Henny Youngman and like Jackie. Jackie. All these like comics who would just like. I think Shecky Green was the name of one. I never saw anything about Shecky Green. I just saw the name and I hear it on like weird like references, like Law and Order will be like, yeah, look at Shecky Green. No idea who it was, but that was like a comic from the Borscht Belt who passed away recently. But I was like, but I love those like Henny Youngman had that joke, take my wife, please.
I don't know who he is, but I've modeled my entire comedy style after him.
Yes, I assume I'm the new Shecky Green.
What came first? Sort of because I mean
The egg.
right. We're done here, folks. Thank you. We've solved it today.
Chicken.
You opened for Louis C.K. in
Yes.
Madison Square Garden,
Yes.
and that was sort of when
little controversial.
sort of,
Little controversial.
but sort of at the peak of one that he could at that moment in time sell out Madison Square Garden.
Right.
And did you meet him through the cellar or?
Yeah, this was like about a year or two after the whole scandal broke and stuff like that. So he was huge, and then he sort of
Right.
happened, and then he started getting back, and I think his fans just wanted more, and then he asked me to. At the cellar, yeah, he saw me do it at the cellar. He's like, "Oh, great jokes! I love that joke." He compared me to like Bob Newhart and Woody Allen.
Oh, interesting.
Which I was like, "Oh, that's great." Which Woody Allen? I'm like, well. All right,
I know that's the fact that you got Louis C.K. and Woody
Right,
Allen
I'm like-
into the
I'm like,
same
all right.
sentence.
It's like you're not helping in this whole groomer thing. But yeah, then he asked me to do it, and
What was that like? I mean, that many people.
it was insane. And also at the time, and like I know people like, believe me, I've lost friends over it. Like
I was gonna ask
being
if
trans,
anybody gave you a shame on
so many
you.
of my friends, like I'm a liberal. I'm
Yeah.
very liberal.
Sure.
And like more so now that dickhead is around. But it's just so I really lost friends over it. But it was
Wow.
like it's one of those things. It's like there were a couple things. One, it's Madison Square Garden. What comic doesn't think like that's like a
Yeah.
dream to perform in Madison Square Garden? It's like I wasn't using the dressing room that Patrick Ewing might have taken a shit in. He was at Nick's center. All right.
She was actually late getting on stage because she was asking everybody which.
Are you aware? Okay. I'm also talking to the camera. All the fucking,
my bro crew in the background.
Right. No, and it was like, but MS, who doesn't like dream in that moment? And granted, I didn't realize I would be performing there the following year too with Amy Schumer. But but also it's like, I don't know what happened with Louis and the people. I don't know. I was just like, you know what? I'm doing it. I want
Did
to
you
do
give it any pause at all, or was it just like, of course, yes?
I mean, for a second, and I also, and part of me is like, at what point, like he didn't. I don't know. I don't know what happened. I don't know if he actually did masturbate in front of people. I don't know if he harassed people. I don't know what happened. But also, like, if he admitted it and he said that, it's like, I don't know. How long do we stay mad at someone? You know? And it's like look, am I going to buy tickets to his show if he comes out? Probably not. But he gave me this opportunity. I'm grateful for it. Yeah.
How did the audience receive you?
They were great. They were
That's
great.
amazing.
They were great. And it's another part of it was like it's easy to perform in front of people you know are going to be supportive. You know,
Right.
They're going to be like people who will be like, I'm trans and I hate Trump, and you get a standing ovation. It's like that's easy. But performing in front of people like Louis fans who are not necessarily like that,
Yeah.
you know, and after the whole thing came out, his fans were much more like oh, I don't want to say like he has fans of comedy, but people who aren't necessarily pro-trans.
Mm-hmm.
And to do that, and it was like that's a challenge, you know.
No,
That's
that's-
something, and hopefully they can look at me and like think, all right, maybe not all, maybe some trans people are funny, maybe some trans people are human, you know.
And was it just you first and then him? Were there any other comics?
There were two other comics, Lynn Coplitz and Greer Barnes,
Wow.
two great comics from the Cellar. Yeah, and it was just a great show. It was a great show,
That's unbelievable. And then,
and I'd do it in a heartbeat if you asked me tomorrow. I'm not gonna, you know.
I mean, if you dig too deeply, you know,
Right.
with any gig that you
Yeah.
get, you probably don't want to know, you know.
I
much
mean, I
about-
did turn down like Dave Chappelle asked me to open for him in place
Really?
in Ohio. Yeah, I did turn that down. But
See, one of my dreams has been to get a sit down with you and Dave Chappelle to just talk about comedy. I mean, and just talk about who's allowed to tell what kind of jokes, because you would be the right person, I feel like, to have who isn't going to get defensive and it can have that conversation.
Right.
Because it's. And I don't want to spend this entire, you know, conversation talking about somebody else.
No,
you know,
absolutely,
But it just feels like the more he talks about it, the less he even understands what it is he's complaining about. I mean,
no, 100%.
it's gotten so unfocused with,
Right.
and I think mainly the thing that he doesn't like are people that don't like him. I mean, I think that's really the only thing that he's got a problem with.
Yeah, I think there are a couple things. Like when I was actually hosting, there's actually a story where I was on stage with Chappelle for like half an hour at the Cellar. It was crazy. I was hosting a show, and I think there were two comics left, and at one point, like the manager just goes to me, like Phil Hanley was on stage, one of my favorite comics in the city, absolutely amazing. Just as a special, you should watch him. He's only been up a couple minutes. The manager comes up to me, just like, light him now, Chappelle, and I'm like, I don't know what that means. So I lit him, and then Chappelle just walked in and wanted to go on stage. So I was like, so I brought Chappelle up, and I gave him a great introduction. I'm not gonna, you know, I wasn't petty.
Right,
I wasn't.
yeah.
It's my job,
Right.
and I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna disrespect the club or him. So I said, you guys, you're in for a special treat. We have one of the greats. Give it up for Dave Chappelle. You know, and the crowd went nuts. And I shake his hand. I get off stage, and I hear him from where I'm at just say, like, man, if this were Jeopardy, the question would be things you didn't expect a trans person to say,
sure.
something like that. And he was up there, and I ended up going to the bathroom, and you know, at one point I had to go to the bathroom, and someone's knocking on the door, like, Jaye, and I'm like, you know, I'm in the bathroom. I'm going. I'm doing what all trans people do,
Yeah.
and look for minors. And, no, so I'm peeing there. I'm sitting there peeing, and someone's knocking on the door, just like, Jaye. I'm like, what? Yeah, I'm peeing. What? And it's like, he wants you on stage. And I'm like, what? So he
wanted you to pee on stage while he was.
apparently, yes,
That
on
makes
him
sense.
on stage. It was a little.
That was was it the Late Show that night? The filthier one,
exactly,
yeah, sure.
exactly. But so then I go upstairs, and like they set up another mic, and he and I talked for like half an hour or something like that.
Wow.
And it was really interesting, you know. And I think part of me thinks.
Did you get that tape? I mean, is that? Oh no, because was it him? They don't record while he's on.
They did, and I had it, and I lost it. I know. You know what? Look, not you too. All right.
Oh my god.
It was. It was.
Well, good. Then maybe I can still have my dream sometime of
There you
getting
go.
you two
There
to
you
have,
go.
and you've already
There you
had a
go.
dress rehearsal.
So it was. Yeah, it was interesting, and it was just I think he expected me to be like, oh, there's a comic who's just gonna say like, no, you have the right to do whatever you want. You have this, you have this,
Yeah.
and I think he really wanted me to have his back, and he asked me about, so what'd you think of my special? And I was like, I didn't see it,
Yeah.
which is true. I didn't see
Yeah.
it, and then I was like, and he's like, he just like looked defeated and stuff, and then I was like, if it's any consolation, I didn't see Hannah Gadsby's special either. Yeah, I don't watch. I see enough comedy. But I had a decent talk. At one point, like in his special, he mentions this woman, Daphne Dorman, who was a comic, who committed suicide, and he talked about her, but the way he framed it in his specials, like all these people on Twitter, these trans people, giving her hate, so she committed suicide, and it's like that's not what happened.
Right.
And I was Facebook friends with Daphne, but I was pretty like I'm her roommate, and I met her, and we've talked a few times before this all happened, so I knew her a little bit. And the thing about Daphne that I wish he would have talked about, like she didn't just kill herself because of the stress of being talking. Like I don't think she cared. Maybe that like you never like to look into someone's
Sure.
motives when they commit suicide, but the things that happened in her life the month prior to her suicide, she lost custody of her child to her wife. Her wife was given full custody. She lost her job. She was about to be homeless again in San Francisco. And the last time she was homeless, apparently she was the victim of a crime and had PTSD. So there was a lot going on. And now to frame it as though the trans community, it's like every time he makes jokes about the trans community, he's not punching a sacred cow. He's making life worse for trans people.
Right.
And that's where I just wish, like, I didn't say all of that, I just said, but I'd say, what, I wish you would have mentioned that, because I would really, things like this are things that trans people don't know about the trans community. They don't know about, and so but it was a good talk. It was like half an hour. We were on stage the whole time, and there's also the pressure of still trying to be funny,
Yeah.
So it was amazing. But then he asked me a couple months, about 6 months later, if it'd be the next day he would fly me out to Ohio to open for him in a theater, and I said no. And now I did actually have something going on, which was kind of important, but I'm glad I had something going on, because I would have felt a little weird.
Yeah, and I guess at least you can say I drew the line
Yeah.
somewhere. I drew the line at
well,
Dave
it's
Chappelle.
not even that. And like I would love to I would love to have a conversation with him again and have it filmed and just a literal thing. I don't want to do these things like I was interviewed by some stupid article about what do you think of this?
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
a trans comedian,
Right.
and I don't want to do that shit anymore. It's like if
With anybody else's jokes, really. I mean,
right. I would like what good will come of that,
Right.
But if the two of us, or if he were to speak with someone else online and get some talk about these issues, I think that's better. Like I don't want people are gonna see these articles and hate trans people even more.
Yeah,
And
I'm
it's
less.
just like, I don't want
I'm less interested in knowing his actual opinions on trans
Right.
people, or I mean, at least now we do have evidence that he's spoken to one before,
Right.
But just more again about comedy, who's
Yeah.
allowed, because that was with his show, and the sudden end of the show, and then him fleeing and everything. From what I understand, that came down to the wrong people laughing at a certain type of
Right,
joke,
right.
and sort of the pressure
Well, like
of
Lauren Boebert took a picture with him. Lauren Boebert. She took a picture with Chappelle, and just two people who know that there are only two genders. It's like these are the people laughing at your
Yeah,
jokes.
right,
And like,
right.
look,
And who's your
he's-
audience? Right.
He's at a point. He's digging in his heels, and I think the more you poke him and put him in a corner, the more he's going to fight back.
Right,
and I
right.
think that's I don't blame him to some extent, but I just it just I don't know.
There's just so many things
And he's such a
that
great
you can talk about on stage.
Yeah.
I just don't understand.
Right.
My whole thing is you don't have to get it. Move on.
Right,
And
right.
who
And-
cares?
And I don't even care if you do this, but just don't act like you're not
Doing
taking
it.
shots at the
Right.
trans community, because
Right.
you 100% are.
Right.
And it's like, and that which you're entitled to. Anyone can go do that. The thing is, you can go to an open mic tonight and find 100 jokes where the punchline is something about her dick.
Yeah. Oh,
Like the
yeah,
bunch
yeah,
is
yeah.
she's got a dick, or
Well, you
and
tweeted
I'm
just
sucking her dick. Or
You tweeted
whatever.
just the other day, which I actually
no,
retweeted,
it's-
that I love, that you feel like I see this all the time. There are more straight male comics in New York making trans jokes
Right.
than there are trans people. I mean,
Right.
it's just
100%.
Yeah.
And they're all pretty similar.
Yeah.
But they're all like, here's my take. And it's like, I don't need
nobody.
your fucking
Right.
take.
I agree.
It's like, here's
100%,
my
yeah.
take on left-handed people.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, all right.
Yeah,
fucking,
I've
you need-
actually said at an open mic, because I run a bunch of open mics in the city. I actually said one time, I said, listen, I'm not going to tell anybody in this room
Right.
how to do comedy. But I want you all to ask yourself, have you ever once heard a straight male comic do a trans take that worked?
Right.
I mean, it just, like...
And it's all the same. Just admit it's hacky. You're a hack if you do a joke about trans people where, well, first of all, if you talk about it, it's hacky
Right.
in general because every fucking comic does. But again, you're welcome to. Just know that it's hack and know that if you do that dick line, it's like you're super hack. You're the same. You're on the same level as an open micer. So go ahead. But don't act like you're fucking Lenny Bruce,
Right,
You know,
yeah.
I mean, Jesus, you're telling it's like the same joke that you can hear 1,000 times tonight. It's like,
Right.
all right,
Airplane food is small.
yeah.
How did the connection happen between you and Amy Schumer?
I was stalking her.
Okay, cool.
And she relented. That's what it was. Yeah.
Perseverance pays
Yeah.
off.
Well,
in
she's
comedy,
another
you guys.
person I met at the Cellar, and that's why I'm so grateful for the Cellar. I just like everything about it, like everything they've done for me there. It's like I was hosting a show. Actually, I wasn't even hosting at the time, but she was working on a new hour, and so they had these things, these like secret lady shows. They were calling it. Just she would come in, she unannounced, and just like if you knew, you knew.
Right.
And they would come in and see her work on a special. So she wanted other female comics to come in, and I was like, and the manager asked me if I wanted to host. I'm like, yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
So I did. We talked a little bit, and then at one point she's like, hey, you know what? And we started talking about a couple projects, which was and then one of them was Inside Amy Schumer. She's like, yeah, we should have you write for that. I'm like, oh, amazing. So I
Wow.
wrote for Inside Amy Schumer, then I got to go on tour with her, and it's absolutely amazing. So.
Yeah, I mean, just the other night, I don't want to misquote this, but I'm pretty sure she was on Andy Cohen the other night
Yes,
and
watched that
asked,
live,
asked what young comics are exciting you right now, and she
I'm
said
flattered
you.
think he said young comics. I believe he said comics you may not have heard of. Yeah. And
You're
I was
plenty young,
number
Jay.
one. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Not in this
Amazing. And
business.
so you wrote for the show, and then you
Yeah.
toured with her. Do you have any upcoming tours in the
Not
works?
really. I'm doing a couple little things here and there. I'm just trying to do one-nighters. I printed out a comic. I should have brought you one. I printed out a comic book last.
Oh, that's right, because you
last
draw
month.
as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I haven't in a while, but I printed out so I have 48 pages of a comic book that I've been working on, but it's not even available online yet. It's just something I sell at shows. But so when I go on, I want to do more with that. Hopefully, I'll get. I want to give it to maybe. I would love to have a deal where I can just put it into a graphic novel form. Because I know what the whole story arc is gonna be for the first like 150 pages or so.
What about, have you thought about doing something more like kind of animation with it, where you're sort of narrating?
I thought of it, but I don't really want to get into that. There's a lot there. Like there's so much more to it that I don't understand. I don't understand animation. Then there's a voiceover. Then there are voiceover actors. And then there's like it's a lot. It's a lot. I would just rather get this. And if someone wants to turn it into animation, I'd be like, hell yeah, I'm on board. But yeah. But yeah, so really, I'm just going around. I'm trying to work on. I just recorded a special that just came out last year, so I'm working on new stuff.
Oh, cool. Where's that
which is-
supposed to stream?
Oh, it's on YouTube. I recorded it I think it was before the Amy Schumer tour. Actually,
Where did you record it?
Union Hall
Oh, nice.
in Brooklyn, and so it was fun. And then it was released last year, and now it's on my YouTube channel. But it's like the process. Oh, I have to start over again.
So you put all the jokes out there, and
Yeah, they're all out there. So,
you date men, correct?
yeah, I don't date anyone anymore. I'm done. I give up.
100%? Or are you being silly, or
win
you
worlds.
being?
I pretty much don't. I'm just like, here's what I'm finding. The older I get, I just like, when I'm sitting at home alone in a bathrobe and men's sweatpants. Because they're so comfortable. Men's pajama bottoms, I transitioned into a cross-dresser when I'm home. It's like they have pockets. They I love. So I'm home looking my worst in a bathrobe and men's pajamas. I think I like being alone here. I don't think I need to ruin this.
Any
So.
animals home with you? Or
No, I'm
it's
not
just-
allowed any pets. Yeah.
in the building.
Yeah.
That's not like a state mandate or.
Right. It's not a trans thing. It's not right. It's not a restraining order. Yeah. It's not like why I can't be near a school
Or a pet store.
or a pet store. Yeah, or a dog park. No, I just I don't know. I mean, if something happens, I wouldn't say no to it necessarily. And the more like I'm definitely more bi than I was say 10 years ago. I just feel like I don't know if I think a lot of trans people once they transition, their sexuality goes all over the place.
Yeah, I've heard that consistently.
And it just I think mine does too. I don't know if it's just like, I mean, a lot of guys when they say they want to date a trans person, it means they want to get railed by a trans person.
Right.
Like that's what it means. That's 99% of it. They want to be a little secret. They want
Right.
to have a little secret where it's just like they bottom for a trans woman because it's their fantasy from watching porn, and it's like that's not.
The type of porn you're making.
That's not the type of porn I'm making. No, I'm doing grittier, edgier, like German shitting on people porn. Like the nastiest shit you've ever seen. And then someone just covered in ants looking up. It's like yeah, artistic. No, but I mean like it's like first of all you're not dating me because you're interested in me. You're dating me because you think I have a penis. And it's like. Which I don't even talk about whether I do or not because
Well, you've said that yourself that half of your jokes you do have a penis and half of your jokes you don't.
Right. It's just whatever works to the punchline.
Yeah.
And I think again like every cis male comic when they make a joke about trans people, it's about their genitals.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna be like, see, it's all right because I do it. It's like
Right.
no, I'm and it's pretty easy. Like I could write an hour of dick jokes. Like it's not hard, But
There's one right there.
Yeah. Oh, Bert. No,
When-
but back to dating. It's just like so I just don't want that. And I think I have found that I just genuinely get along better with women, and I'm not really. I want nothing to do with a vagina. Like I don't even want it in the same house. Like I think we should all be built like Ken and Barbie, no genitals, and just rub against each other.
What was the thing that when you first started doing comedy? Was there like an open mic? Was it some sort of something you've been wanting to do for a while?
Oh yeah, it was something definitely that I'd always wanted to do. I did it in a talent show when I was like in middle school. I did comedy and liked it. And growing up, I always remember like some of my earliest members were like watching Letterman or something like that, sneaking downstairs to see if there's a comic on Letterman, just because it was like that's the cool thing to do, and just loving those, like watching these comedians. So I'd always wanted to do that. And after I transitioned, it was one of those things like I ended up going back to school, getting a degree in math. I ended up like doing a lot which was something I always wanted to do, and I thought, what else do I always want to do? So then I was like, well, I always want to be a comedian. So I found an open mic a few blocks from where I lived in Albany, and went there, had fun, and just kept doing it.
Who were some of your early influences for comedians?
I think, well, early, like the first comic I remember seeing was Jake Johansson on Letterman, and he was on like 40-something times, and he's not even a household name, but he's really great. He's one of the best comics out there. He's from I think San Francisco or something like that. That's where he started. But he was like one of the first that I ever saw. But I think Joan Rivers, the Queen, the Joan Rivers.
Okay, cool.
Don Rickles I thought was funny at the time, but then as I started doing comedy, it was more like Mitch Hedberg, Anthony Jeselnik, like Sarah Silverman.
I used to like Sarah Silverman a lot. I mean, I still do. I don't mean that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that was one that I liked as well. How did you end up being at the Cellar?
That was, I didn't actually get recommended, which is weird. Usually that's what
Right,
happens.
right.
I did Noam's, the owner, Noam, has a podcast, like Live from the Cellar, and he brings people in to talk issues. He brought me in once, and, we had a great talk, and it was me and a couple other comics, and, it was really fun. He said something like, "Oh, you should send me a tape." Well, I don't know. We'll see. And I'm like, all right, never mind. But then like about 6 months later, he asked me to do the podcast again, and again, it was a great thing. He said, I thought you were gonna send me a tape, so I was like, all right, great. So,
I thought you changed your mind mid-sentence.
Right. So I sent him a 5-minute clip. He referred me to Esty, the booker, who's like, the best. She's like, I mean, she's one of the queen of comedies in the world. You know what I mean? Like, so she auditioned me. I got passed, and that was it. Yeah. It is, by the way, it is crazy that for the longest time there was Mitzi Shore on the West Coast and Esty here on the East Coast, and two of the most powerful people in comedy were women. And I think that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing. Well, you and I met.
I think it was at QED.
Well,
we talked a little bit. Yeah.
Exactly, like you said at the beginning, your show at QED. How long did you run that show?
About a year or so. I think I called it like LGBTQED, which I thought was a fun name. And then and it's it was just queer comics and so tough to get a show. Like everyone out there starting comedy should produce a show just to see how difficult it is and
100%.
what you need to do. But yeah, so I was always booking queer comics, and I don't know if we met at somewhere and then I asked you to come.
I may have reached out to you first because Drew Lausch was on the show recently, and he was running, and we had very similar conversation about it. He said the same thing. Everybody should run a show,
right.
Because it teaches you, if nothing else, just to be on time. If you're running 5 minutes late, how much you have fucked the entire
100%,
show
100%.
for everybody else there and stressed out the host and the whole thing. But he was running. I forgot that your show was called LGBTQ.
Well, at first I wanted to call it Spot the Straight, where we had one
I
straight
think
comic.
it was called Spot the Straight when I did
We
it.
had one straight comic and the rest were queer, but then everyone just like talks about themselves, so it's like every queer comic talks about being queer.
Right.
Every straight comic just talks about their, so it didn't, that concept didn't really work, and it wasn't even, at first I thought it'd be a funny thing, like, hey, let's bring the audience up here, but like,
it's me
who's
again,
so
everybody.
Like,
Do it Scooby-Doo style.
Prove it. Have sex with this man. But yeah, that's what it was first called. But it was, I was like, so one straight comic and a bunch of queers. And people would reach out all the time, and I'm like, yeah, sure. I mean, you got to support queer comics. You have to. So anytime someone did, I was like, yeah, come on down. So yeah.
Well, QED, I mean, is rough anyway, just because it's so far away
it is.
to
And
get
it's a great spot, and the owners, I love the owners. Yeah, it's like if you're in Brooklyn, it takes you over an hour to get there on subway, and meanwhile, it's like 4 miles. Like you could ride a bike and get there in no time. But, yeah. So.
I think I probably reached out to you first because that was when, again, we were getting you passed within Broadway and Greenwich Village Comedy Club. We passed her before anybody else, y'all. I'm just saying. And then the prize for winning the New York Queer Comedy Festival was, in addition to being a past comic with us, that you would get booked on a bunch of queer shows. So you were one of the ones, and you were a judge and a headliner that well, you've been on the show. I mean, just about every year, I would imagine.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think a couple. I think I missed one when you had when it was at Greenwich.
Oh yeah, I think you were with Amy Schumer.
Right. I know. It's terrible. Yeah. I think so. I think I was a judge one year, and it was. I think the first year I was there, I was the headliner, and it didn't seem like a lot. People. But then it blew up. It just blew up. And the next year I was a judge, and it was amazing. Like all the comics there were so many great comics. There was actually a trans comic who was really good there at that.
Yeah, I mean the show gets more and more queer every year.
Right.
I mean, because I've said it before. The first year I felt like it was kind of a lot of cis white straight dudes doing the same grinder jokes back to back. But that's changed dramatically. Now, one thing that I would love to hear your opinion on that's been fascinating to me to see, especially this year. Now, the first year we did the festival, it was not uncommon to have women who identify as queer but date primarily men. Fine.
Yeah.
But this year we've had
let's see.
a lot.
You're so brave.
A lot. You're gonna get me in trouble. We've had a lot of men, because when I was growing up, like if you messed around with a guy once, that didn't count. But now I feel like if you mess around with a guy once, it does count. I'm bisexual. Put me on your queer show.
right.
And like, we had several like really straight presenting guys. They're like, no, dude, I'm bisexual. Let's go, bro.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, like women have always been more fluid sexually.
Sure.
And when I was in college, I don't know if they called it lug. Lesbian until graduation.
No,
there were a lot of girls like that. They would do that. And then later on, it became like tug and nug. So trans and non-binary until graduation. It became a thing, which is interesting. But
nobody I knew graduated. So
yeah. I know, if they had colleges where you were, or high schools, or more than one Laura Ingalls schoolhouse. Yeah, so it's cool to see that guys are becoming more fluid because there are a lot of queer women, and they do date guys, they date women, absolutely there have always been more, and the fact that there are more in New York, it doesn't surprise me, but that guys are doing it, absolutely.
Which I would love to just get to a place of fuck who you want, dress how you want. Next,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
like,
Oh, sure, for sure.
but yeah, it's funny. I did have several dudes in the mix this year that. I mean, I don't get to vet the comic, so if they say they're bisexual, I just have to take them on their word.
Right. Prove it. Suck that dick right there. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. I remember I judged, and I don't know. The one thing I would love to see next for queer comics, not just do all queer, all for queer audience shows, like not just do like I think there's a tendency among open micers, but then queers especially, to get dirtier and darker, and I don't know, I would love to see someone, like, you can always make jokes dirtier and darker. I would love to see someone start there and then just like be more like just I don't want to say mainstream, but make everyone laugh universally.
I mean, as a comic, we have to do that. I mean, because they're just. Yeah, I mean, I can do shows at Broadway because we have 2 spaces at Broadway that all do, a set downstairs, crush, run upstairs, do exactly the same set, and eat shit. I mean, and you just. So I mean, I feel to be a good comic, you have to be able to appeal to. Maybe not appeal to everybody, but at least make them laugh.
Right.
That's the one job we have. Yeah,
that's your job. That's if you want this as a career, that's literally the job description. So I mean, and I think there's enough room now for people that they can carve out a niche with just alt stuff. But it's like if you're a queer comic, you don't have to be like, yeah, here's another joke about semen. It's like, all right, like two people from Kansas aren't gonna be here like, oh, okay, this is brilliant. It's like, now let's talk about eating ass. And it's like, all right.
It is. There's a lot of ass-eating jokes out there right now.
So many.
I mean, it's like straight men have just all of a sudden Christopher Columbus the asshole.
Right.
Between proctology jokes and pegging jokes and ass-eating jokes. It's just like, it's like this whole new world for straight.
Are you going to sing it?
What's that?
World?
I missed it. Are you a social media person or not a social media person?
I am. I'm no longer on Twitter. But yeah.
Well, sure.
I mean, yeah. Ever since they took that whole Nazi turn. I'm like, but I'm on Insta, Jaye.McBride. I'm on TikTok, I think, but I didn't really do much there. Have you catch my special on YouTube?
On YouTube, have you run into like the libs of TikTok or any of the nasty people getting a hold of your stuff?
No, they've never reached out to me personally, and we've never had a discussion with them. But all their fans are constantly like posting like comments, or they're making bots with comments like, "You're a dude." I'm like, all right, brilliant, thanks. Yeah, it's So, but yeah, I've never had anything like that.
Well, cool. Check out our special on YouTube. This has been so much fun. Thank you for coming
I hope
on.
You don't have to cut out too many things.
We will see you next time. Y'all, please like and subscribe. Have a great day.
It's Drew Tessier's mostly queer comedy show. Let's talk, y'all.